following thoughts, opinions, stories, and expressions are meant for those who will appreciate them. If you don't, we hope you keep an open soul to encounter another here on 34 Questions. Peace. In 3, 2, 1. What's going on, folks? Welcome to 34 Questions. I'm your host, 34, and tonight I have a very special guest. Jack is in the building. How you doing tonight, Jack?
I'm doing great, man. How you been?
Been all right, man. Been all right. This week has been a little tough. I feel super busy at work. I work with kids. For the folks out there who don't know, this is the first time me and Jack linking up. So, yeah, man, working with kids. I've been at this new job for about 4 months or so, and I feel like I'm starting to get that rhythm and building that connection with the high school students I work with. So it's been great, man. How about yourself?
I've been pretty good, but now I'm just fascinated. What is it that you do exactly? You're a teacher?
I am not a teacher. I consider myself like a coach, but I am the site coordinator for an after school program here in the Bay Area for high schoolers. So I have to come up with events and clubs, just to enrich that experience for kids. And like we're trying to bounce back from COVID and everything. So it's very interesting to see like how it's affected the education system as far as like at least the school I work at, because the kids, man, they want something different. They knew what school was like before, and coming back, they're just like, nah, that's not the business, man. We need something new, something fresh, which is challenging. We have a lot of people who are stuck in traditional ways. But I don't think these kids are vibing with it too much, and if they are, it doesn't have that same energy, So yeah, that's my day job, man.
I like that a lot. I like that you definitely have dedicated your time to making other people's lives better. That's phenomenal.
It took me a long time to figure that out for myself. I've had 17 jobs in 10 years, man. Bounced around a lot.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And, it's funny when I say it, it feels so normal to me. But I know for other folks, it's like, God damn, man, like you can't stay at one place. And I really couldn't, I would be in a job, and then after a few months, like, once you pick up the rhythm, then it gets pretty boring, especially if you don't feel like you can grow or there's no way of growth. That's what would happen to me. And then the job I'm at right now, I actually left 4 years ago. And then I came back because I was like, damn, the only thing that makes me feel fulfilled is working with these kids. You feel me? So that's how I
found purpose, 100% purpose over just work.
Yeah. And I mean, then that's not scary, but when I look around with the folks around me, and maybe not everyone's feeling as fulfilled, but like, do I tell them, oh, maybe you should work with kids because that's very fulfilling, like, even though it might not be the highest paying thing, but the fact that you're interacting and like, I consider myself being like in the background of someone's experience, like for these kids, I'm almost like a non-playable character in these video games, just this dude that they see every once in a while. But there's moments where you feel like maybe something you said will stick with them, and those are the moments I live for.
I like that a lot. That's a very interesting visual too, being a non-playable character in somebody else's life, because a lot of the time that's what we are overall, right? We're just to most people, we're just somebody passing by. We're just an NPC hanging out.
Exactly. We're sharing this world, but it's not like we're interacting with each other, not everyone at the same time. So I think like we're vibing already. So for us to just like talk to someone that maybe we don't talk to normally, or like I'm never sure how I could bring that energy to these kids so they can feel the same way as I do. It's like, yeah, go talk to that bank teller, or go talk to that security guard or whatever. Find out what their story is.
Yes, exactly. The stories of the individuals of this world are fascinating and so varied and complicated, intricate, nuanced ways. And even people who go through the same exact experiences process them differently and would tell you the same story in so many different ways based on their own perception, that you'd get a million different things from a million different people who experience exactly the same series of events.
I feel you, man. Well, I mean, we'll just jump straight into it, man. What do you think of how I have some friends who are marketers, right? And they tell me all the time, like, there's boxes where people fit in, and that's what marketers do. You know, they try to figure out what box they're trying to sell a product to. But for me, I keep saying, like, I can't feel that way. I don't feel like people, even though you can say there's patterns, I don't think that that experience or like that perception for each person is exactly the same because of all the factors that happen in our lives, you know, and even to the day-to-day things that happen to us, that shapes us in some way or form, and you can't really tell me that like this box is defining, you know, a whole group of people. You feel me?
Oh no, I agree and disagree.
Okay,
because
yeah. Tell me why. Tell me why.
Yes, we're very varied and we're very nuanced if you get to a granular level, but on surface level, unless you're having that in-depth, detailed conversation with somebody, we're all more or less the same. That's sort of, if you think of just, for example, the concept of politics, right? So many people fall into two teams. You could generalize it to such a vast kind of blanket term that you can have two teams and it encompasses everybody. But then when you start talking to individuals, you get more nuance, and you find out, okay, you might be a Republican, but you don't agree with this part of that section. And you might be a Democrat, but you don't agree with this part of that. So in the broader term, yes, we're all very similar. We're still all human. We still have wants and needs. I'm sure there's music you listen to that somebody else listens to. You're not listening to the one obscure musician nobody's ever heard of and you're the only person listening to. So there is a generalized idea that works for the majority. And then there is the individual case as you get to know a person close up and in a granular, nuanced way. So both answers are right. Yes, we're all different and unique, but also in a way that's very similar and common.
I hear you. I think that's something that, at least for my personal growth, you know how like we have our convictions, and sometimes you got to be open to, you know, other perspectives. And I hear you on that. And yeah, I can't deny the fact that, like, you know, if I listen to, let's say I listen to J. Cole, then like there's a bunch of artists that are similar to him. I'm pretty sure another fan of J. Cole probably listens to the same artists as I do, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't deny that fact. But all right, man, we started off pretty strong and quick, but let me start you off with the warm-up questions real quick. And
go for it.
I'm gonna break it down to the audience real quick. So the folks out there who are unfamiliar with the flow of the show, we start off with some intro questions typically, and then we'll jump into some icebreakers. After that, we'll turn to the Wheel of Fate that helps us guide the conversation, and then we'll finish everything off with some closeout questions. Sound good to you, Jack?
Sounds perfect.
All right. So, man, my very first question for you. It's been a crazy couple years. How have you been? Been doing great. Been doing good. How you been lately, man?
I've been great, man. I've been phenomenal. Just doing the usual. I spend most of my life simply creating and getting into people's heads. I love diving into people's heads and understanding what makes individuals tick. So I spend a lot of time researching and conversing with the, I guess, more obscure things. I like to say I crawl around people's heads looking for the things that stand out from individuals rather than the things that, like we just talked about, there are the things that make us different and there are the things that make us the same. I like to hunt down the things that make us different and spend all my time doing that. And once I get there with a person, I've discovered something new and I'll dive into that deeper on my own so that now I have a bigger wealth of knowledge about this thing I didn't know existed. And so I've just been doing that for the last couple of years, including with the show and just in life in general, going out and talking to people.
Has that been something that you've always kind of carried, like that approach? Or it sounds like maybe a couple of years ago, that's something that just clicked for you and you just started to use more time for it?
No. So basically, in the last couple of years, I've dedicated time to turning it into something profitable as opposed to just something I casually do. But through the entirety of my life, since I was a child, I was quite extremely extroverted. So I would like wander out and talk to complete strangers. I remember this one moment. I was about 14 years old and I was walking from school. And there was this guy. I used to see him every day around the same time. I was walking from school, walking home, and I just started a conversation with the guy, just some random dude I see all the time. I'm like, hey man, who are you, the strange guy walking? And we had a really good conversation. I couldn't even tell you what we talked about. It was just the energy was great. Whatever, we're talking. So the next day I see him, and the same guy, great conversation, phenomenal. And at the end of the conversation, he tells me, hey man, I'm going to my brother's house to shoot up heroin. You want to join me? And I was like, holy shit. Wait.
At 14?
So at 14.
Oh, shit.
So I was like, yeah, fuck. Luckily, I'm not willing to try that. But I was fascinated by the fact that this intellectual was doing this. So then I became sort of fascinated by, now this is just an example of me just talking to complete strangers in the middle of nobody, but I became fascinated by the fact that this guy seems so high functioning and whatever. So I started heavily researching heroin and other drugs that fall into the whole they fuck your life up situation. And I learned one very specific thing. The United States has propaganda associated with that, because in other countries, people do it and function, and they get told on media that they function. The only cases we see are the people who can't afford it and have addictive tendencies, who then go outside and perform crimes and things to then fuel the habit. But then looking deeper into it, I found out that most doctors and lawyers are doing either heroin or cocaine. And I'm like, holy shit, that's just going on in the United States. People functioning, people operating on you, people who defend you in court.
I got you.
That.
Yeah, that. I hear you, man. I hear you. I mean, it is a trip. I know about the coke stuff. I don't partake myself, but I feel like, as you get older, you just see people in circles and stuff that's a recreational thing for them. I'd never touched it myself because, I think humans have addictive tendencies. For me, I know where I draw my lines as far as drugs go, and that's definitely not a line I've crossed, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that
yes, that is my same. Like I will admit I have addictive tendencies, and because of that, there's no way in hell I would ever touch it, because I know it's a one-way trip.
Oof.
And kudos to those who can handle it. Like we get lied to about so much in our educations. Obviously, they don't want us to do drugs, so they're going to try to scare us. But the best thing would be to inform us, as opposed to just scare us about everything.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's no way I'm fucking trying it. Like, it doesn't really matter what the fuck you tell me. I'm not gonna go do it anyways.
No, for sure. I'm glad that you know where your lines are, and I think that's something that, like, right now in the high school I work at, I feel like all the kids are 100%. I would say not 100%, but 70% of the kids are doing marijuana or weed. They're smoking, they're taking edibles, vape carts, whatever. And like, for me, I actually didn't try anything until I was 18, because of, I was raised and my parents were pretty strict and whatnot. But as soon as I had got a chance to, and I knew what I wanted to try, I did. But I know how it affected my life, and I can't imagine a kid like the kids that are doing it now. And if you're a kid and you have an adult telling you don't do it, you're pretty much going to do it, right? So
yes,
I don't want to.
That's a big problem.
I don't want to come at that angle, but I also feel like there's this, professionalism that I have to keep up and be like, I can't tell them about my experiences just yet, until either they open it up, and, I can't force my experiences on them. So yeah, it's something very tricky, because I know it's been a big part of my life, weed, but it's not something I can openly talk to them about just yet. But yeah, as far as being extroverted, or in your experience, do you feel like people are more extroverted or introverted?
Vast majority introverted.
For sure, yeah.
Yes.
And like, as far as the other extroverts that you've come across, like, what do you think it is about, I guess, their experience or even your experience that just makes you feel like, yo, I want to meet people. I want to know people's stories. You feel me?
I'm fascinated by people. I'm fascinated by nuance, and I think for other extroverts, it's either they're fascinated by people. I guess the intellectual extroverts tend to be more like that, but so are the introverts, to be fair. But I think also, for example, if you look at something like Myers-Briggs, they use a word for that I really, really like, which is, they say extroverts get their energy from people, and introverts use their energy on people. And I think although Myers-Briggs has a lot of flaws, the word selection there is quite specific to a lot of extroverts that just generally, even if they're not learning crap about you, they just like the vibe of people. Think of very extroverted activities, clubs, bars, playing pool, outdoor sports. It's energy. It's all energy.
I got you.
So I think that they definitely extroverts by vast majority do definitely get their energy from other people, while introverts tend to value their own energy more.
Interesting. Yeah, and I mean, for me, like as far as the line between introvert and extroverted, I'm a big believer in balance. And I can definitely know when, I'm pretty much in my room all the time, or when I'm out, I just want to like say what's up to somebody and like, have a quick little conversation. And the reason why I created this podcast was because in those conversations, I felt like I was always trying to dig a little deeper. And sometimes with strangers, that's not what they want to do. They're like, yo, man, you got to cool down. Like, I don't know who you are, and I don't know why you're asking me these questions.
Oh no, people fear big talk.
What's big talk for you?
Big talk, anything that how do I put it? Letting someone tinker with your thoughts as opposed to surface level discussions.
I got you.
So, I like to talk religion. I like to talk politics. I like to talk sexuality. I like to talk personal experience. I like to talk perspective. Anything, the big topics that usually have a person question their own thoughts. That I like that. Those are big talk to me.
I got you. I'm gonna move on to the second warm-up question. What would you like the audience to know about you?
Oh, okay, fair enough. Let's see. I'm clinically a psychopath.
Really?
Yes, diagnosed.
Diagnosed. Well, what? Like, I watch fucking, TV shows and SVU and stuff, and that's what I know about psychopaths. But like, for you,
very wrong.
Yeah.
Highly incorrect.
I was gonna say, the second question was like, what's the biggest misconception about you? What would you say is the biggest misconception about being a psychopath?
The biggest misconception is that a psychopath is a violent, heartless person, as opposed to like the literal definition of a psychopath, as opposed to sociopath. So sociopath is a person who doesn't process social norms the way other people do. Psychopathy is not processing emotions the way other people do. So by definition, apathy. So I have a very small understanding of emotions. But in return, sort of like a blind person who their other senses kind of kick in and make up the difference, I have an extremely calculated ones and zeros kind of perspective of the world that makes me sort of view things in a unique way. On the flip side, there is a vast majority of people who are psychopaths that just exist in society. It's very common. About 10% of all people are psychopaths. Usually they tend to be like the CEO of a company. They tend to be whoever you see in your neighborhood who's probably partaking in the most things and donates the most money and shows up to all the events and never seems to be emotionally exhausted, is there for everybody's emotional problems and they never seem to get affected by them. Those people usually tend to be the psychopaths who have a very... If you ever had a conversation with somebody and they're sooner to tell you, like you tell them a problem, a really bad problem. Oh, this is horrible. This is what happened in my life. And they sooner tell you a solution to the problem as opposed to be empathetic towards your emotions. That person, if you think of the scale, right? So one side is empath, the other side is psychopath. Those are the two opposite sides of the same thing. And the middle is normal people. So somebody who's sooner to worry about your emotion, oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to get better. Think of this. It'll make you feel better. That person is closer to empath as opposed to somebody who's like, well, maybe if you try this, then you won't feel that way. Or perhaps this is the solution to your problem. That person is tilting slightly towards the psychopath side.
Interesting. Because I've had cases where like I'm generally a person who's solution minded. So when someone comes with a problem, I want to help them in a way of like, let's find a solution. I do also say stuff like it's going to be okay. Tomorrow's a new day. And I've also had people tell me like, don't dismiss what I'm going through by saying that. And so I'm like stuck where like, damn, I didn't mean to dismiss what you're feeling or like, try to downsize it. But I also,
here's the question.
Go for it.
Do you get that more often than not?
I would say no. I would say it's more so, I get that least, or less, but it's also, I think, the closest people to me who say it versus someone I don't really know who might just take it's going to be fine and, not tell me how they really feel,
Okay, so if you think of the middle ground being 50,
Okay.
Let's say emotional capacity, so empathy is at 100 and psychopathy is at 0, there is a wide range in the middle. So if you say from 50 to 75, then you're in the normal range, and from 50 to 25, you're still within the normal. That's most people fall towards the middle line.
For sure.
But the extremes are where you get psychopath and empath.
Mm-hmm.
So like that last 25 or that last 75 is where those sides end. If you're getting this normally and when you tell people, it's going to be better tomorrow, or, to give it time, it'll go away or whatever, and you mean it, as opposed to know that that's the right thing to say because it would make them feel a certain way, that's a big difference right there. You're closer towards the middle if you have the capacity to understand both sides of that. But if you're, for example, I will tell somebody, it will feel, it's going to get better. You don't have to worry about this. If you give it time, you'll forget about her, or, get under somebody else, man, that kind of crap. The idea ultimately is I know the emotional response, although I don't know why it works. I don't know why just the superficial, it'll be better. Like, you should know that.
Yeah.
That's how it processes in my mind. Like, you should know it's going to get better. Give it time. Like, no shit. But it makes people feel better. My awareness of that kind of iffy, because if you like went into my head and saw how I thought about it, well, if I say this, then they'll react this way, as opposed to I feel the thing.
I got you.
So I think you're towards the middle.
No, I'm pretty sure like my whole thing is about being in the middle. But yeah, it's just interesting because like I don't think, I guess there's always those moments where I'm like, man, maybe I'm thinking differently than other people, but then,
we're all thinking differently from other people.
That's true. You got me there. But I don't, I have a fascination with like psychopaths or sociopaths, like, because I think that way of thinking is, it, like you said, it gives you a whole different view on the world, versus how everybody else is, where I think there's the people who aren't, I feel like are more easily, the normal people are more easily influenced by stuff that's happening, Yes.
Emotions are easily swayed and manipulated, and there are many people out there. Here's the ironic part, right? Let me give you some details of information that you probably never thought about, but make total sense.
Drop it on me.
Most murders are crimes of passion. Not psychopathy related. Serial killers were usually influenced, if you think, by their mom or something like that, and they're bouncing off of an emotional trauma as opposed to the lack of emotion. So empaths tend to be the people who go out and kill other people because they're so overwhelmed by emotion. Somebody who goes and shoots up a church. Well, you had an emotional response to that kind of person specifically, that you went and you shot. The people who go and they shoot up a school. Well, you felt some kind of way based on how they were treating you, and you went and you solved the problem through violence. Person who picks a very specific kind of person. I'm gonna, rape and kill this type of person. It's just always blonde hair, blue eyes, always. Okay, so you have an emotion, you're satisfying some emotion by doing this. So the people that you see having the most emotional response to things are also the most dangerous people. Crimes are crimes of passion most often. You got cheated on, you went and you killed her.
Got you. Yeah, that is a new way of thinking that I haven't come across, but it makes sense. And I'm gonna trust you that you done your research, because it sounds like you have. But yeah, that's a trip, man.
That's weird, right?
No.
Think that the people because we think of somebody unemotional and we're like, that's fucking scary, but that person has less reason to do anything because you're just another person, as opposed to somebody who's having an emotional response. How many people can be easily manipulated simply by an article's headline? and they felt some kind of way, and then they had to go immediately online and comment. Now replace that and say there's no internet. That person went outside and did something.
Got you. Fuck. It kind of makes me think, like, you know, I said I'd like to be in the middle, just because there's a part of me that I feel like I can I feel empathetic to a lot of people, and you know what their struggles are and what their story is, and that's what draws me to have these conversations. Then I also have that part of me that I feel like I can disassociate myself with things that are going on, just because, like, at least in my mind, I know there's a lot of things I can't control, and I almost have gotten to this point where the things I can't control, I'm not gonna try to worry about or think about, and entirely focused on like what I can do with what I have, you know, instead of trying to feel like, oh, I'm lacking something and I can't do it. It's like, well, what do I have, and I'm gonna just do it. So everything else, like politics, you know, and you know, just relevant topics right now, everyone's kind of worried about World War III happening, and for me it's like I could spend my time worrying about it, but like right now I'm just focused on, you know, interacting with these kids at work. And but that's where I'm at. So does that sound like the middle to you still?
It does sound like the middle. You care about people, you empathize with people, you feel for people, and then you approach how to solve and help with a logical mind, as opposed to I felt a way, I'm gonna just go feel my way through that next thing. You feel feelings and then you apply logic to how to work with them.
For sure. So you said you were diagnosed. Like, was this something you knew for a long time now, or is it still kind of recent?
Since I was a child.
Oh yeah? Like, yeah. So, I mean, I hope you don't mind me asking all these questions.
Oh no, dive in. I don't give a crap.
All right, for sure. What was childhood like then, if you don't mind me asking?
My childhood, very detached, very confused. I don't understand people per se. At least not. I understand how people react and how to behave in order to get people to not be uncomfortable. I don't know why people react. I was having this conversation with my girlfriend the other day about watching movies, right? And I've never seen a horror movie and been scared. I've never seen a drama that got me to cry. And there's this sort of, I constantly see, like, on YouTube or watching TikToks or fucking reels or whatever, just wandering, looking at people's response to media and how they feel moved, like it affected them and it changed who they are. And I'm like, I can't fathom that happening in the real world, but people say it, a bunch of people say it consistently. Oh, this affected me this way, this affected me that way. I'm like, I don't understand how. And I tried to, like, it makes no sense in my head that something that literally didn't affect your life, it's not part of your life, it's not an event in your life, altered your life. That's now assume being a child trying to process that. And everybody looks crazy at all times to me.
Yeah. So like for any kind of media, as far as like music, movies, TV shows, how do you enjoy that? Like, I'm asking.
This is what's interesting. I do enjoy it very much. I particularly enjoy music. I'm almost an obsessive when it comes to music, but then you listen to a conversation that I have about music and I'll dive into how the instrumentalization works, or think of Eminem, how clever it is that he'll have double, triple, quadruple entendres. He'll have a song that's double meaning. I'm obsessed with the song Never Love Again, which sounds like a song about breaking up with a lady, when in reality, he's talking about his addiction. And the whole song is put in such a way that you could never tell that he's talking about drugs until you know that he's talking about drugs. You hear the song and then you can't unhear the fact that the entire time, everything he says is about drugs. But he was so clever that he worded it like if it were a romantic relationship. So it's just as valid a romance song as it is a song about drugs. I'm fascinated by that. Did it change my life? No. Like, why would it?
I got you. I'll tell you now, man. I know a movie is good if it gets me to cry, and You know,
explain that to me. What is it that you feel at that moment?
Okay. I'm trying to think of the last one. So, you heard of Peacemaker, that new HBO show?
With
John Cena.
John Cena, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a scene in it where like basically he's a dude that wants to be a hero, but he's known as a villain or like a bad guy. So when he's trying to do things that are right, he has this thing where like, at least there's a scene where I respect John Cena for it. He's like sitting down in his bed and he's just like telling himself like, man, like everybody hates me, or I'm so stupid, and like just tries to bring himself down, which is something I feel like is relatable to a lot of folks like myself. And I'm just sitting there like, damn, man, like displaying that emotion that I think people like have in their private lives, and then having it on screen and like seeing it in the story, it made me feel connected to that character. And I'm just like, all right, well, now I feel for this character because I feel the same way. And I think that's what gets me.
That's so strange, because when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I relate to the character because I feel the same, but there's 8 billion of us. There's a high possibility about half of everybody relates to what you're saying. So why don't you feel that way towards somebody else?
Which I think I would. I just don't see it or I don't hear it. But like, you know, if like working at the school, I feel like I'm connecting my experience as far as like, okay, this kid reminds me of someone I went to school with, and that happens for all the kids. And then if I find a kid that I feel like is like me, which I feel like I have before, then it's like this whole thing of feeling like I'm trying to save myself, you know, like because I see myself in this kid, and I'm, you know, I want to lead them to that path that I wish I was led to when I was at that age. So it's not that I don't think that I would have that same emotion, and I think being person to person, I still have that wall myself, like, you know, where I can't show this part of me crying in front of them, but for a TV show or a movie, it's like it's still disconnected enough that I can have that private moment for myself, you know. Why
do you care what other people think of you?
Well, you know, I think that's just like the system that was built, and I'm still in that system, at least in my mindset. And I've been working real hard to not care what people think. But, you know, like, I'll be real. I care about what my parents think of me, for sure. I care about like
why?
I think it's this responsibility I feel to make sure they feel good. Like specifically for my folks, I think in my experience, their identity, I was raised an only child, had a sister who had passed away before I was born. So my relationship with my folks, like they kind of see me as that second chance. And a lot of their identity was wrapped around me and like what I was going to be and, you know, what kind of person I am. So for me, like I care about what they think because I want them to feel good about what they've done, you know, or like.
Right. Yeah. But there's no way you can control how they feel. So even if they say, I'm proud of you because they feel the obligation to, because they're parents, you'll never know inside their head whether that's a true statement or they're just saying that because they don't want to be disrespectful to their kid and they want to be supportive, but maybe they hate everything you've ever done, and you'd have no way of knowing that because they're your parents. They're gonna love you. They're gonna say they love you. That's their job. And unless they're terrible parents who are like, well, no, you fucking suck for what you did, go fucking kick rocks, unless that's who they are, and I'm assuming most parents strive to not be horrible like that, you, regardless of what path you would have taken and however it shows itself, as long as you're not out there actively harming other people, they're going to be proud of the fact, or at least say they're proud of the fact, because there's no way to know. You're not in their heads. You'll never be in their heads. You'll never know factually. They could be bothered by everything you do. So because that fact doesn't exist, because you could never prove the point, why not just do what makes you happy, regardless of what anybody else might think, including your parents, so long as you don't violate the sacred rule of don't harm others?
For sure. And for the most part, like my parents are super understanding of the path I've taken. And like I said, I was raised a little strict. They've totally cooled off on that. And they've been more accepting of me. It's just more so, man, like, I don't know. They've given me so much of their lives, their time, their effort, their love, that, you know, I want to make them proud I want to make them proud in the way they can be proud of themselves. Because, you know, I think for my parents' experience, losing a child, man, you doubt yourself completely after that. And I think I see that a lot of my folks. So, you know, I want them to feel that like they should have no doubts about how they feel about like how I was raised or how they raised me, you know.
There's no way you could control that.
I can't.
There's nothing you can do. If they are doubtful about themselves, they will be doubtful regardless of how you turn out, because that's about them, not about you.
Yeah. And honestly, man, that's something that anytime I feel down about that stuff, I always try to remind myself it's not about me, you know, in those moments. So, I mean, I don't think it's something that is completely gone, but I definitely know that it weighs on me on some level. I still stay with them, you know, like if I really didn't care about, you know, how they felt and everything, I probably would have moved far away, done my own thing. But for some reason, I feel like this hold that I should be here for them for as long as I can, as long as they're around. Because for me, it's one of those, them saying we're not going to be around forever kind of like stuck to me. You feel me? It's like, okay, yeah, that's true. So maybe I should scale.
Neither are you, and worrying about how other people feel is wasting your time as opposed to doing the things that will allow you to enjoy your life while you're here for the one time you're here.
I'm not, and that's what I mean by like trying to find the things that I feel like I can't control, and focusing on that. So I'm here, but I still feel like I'm doing everything that I want to be doing while I'm here. Yeah.
Do you feel you can control something?
I feel like I control my perception of my life and the world. Like that's the only thing I
feel you control your perception
of yeah. I mean, I think really? I do.
All right.
Yeah.
So if I told you that racism is completely fine,
then I would disagree with that.
Right. Yeah. But then I will make the distinction that being a racist and believing you're better than somebody is something all of us have, but behaving like a racist is what's actually bad. So you can believe you're better than anybody else and be respectful to everybody and treat everybody like equals, but as soon as you don't apply those thoughts into action and make somebody's life lesser, that's problematic. But if you don't do that and you treat everybody with kindness, then you can be a racist and be a great person. We don't judge your religion. Why do we judge other things inside of your head? So now I'm controlling your perception. You're not controlling your perception. I just educated you on how to think about something that's easily agreeable because we all believe we're better than other people one way or another. If I ask you what's the greatest country in the world, chances are you think you live in it.
I mean, but so you broke that down for me. You gave me that information, but wouldn't it be up to me whether or not I would agree with it or like take something from it?
No, nurture decides what you might believe or not.
Interesting.
Your perception isn't your control. Otherwise, we would just be manipulating our reality actively. But we are influenced by the things that happen to us and the things we witness, as opposed to deciding what happens to us and deciding what we witness.
I mean, when we witness something, isn't it like different from what you know, how you witnessed it versus how I witnessed it?
Yeah, 100%. But also, you're not controlling how you process the things in your head. Your brain is doing that. In fact, I can tell you that if I threw something at you, before you can think about it, you're going to react to dodge it. That's because you're not the one in control. Your subconscious is. You've never controlled a single thing as long as you've lived. You can prove that to yourself simply by reading something and realizing that your mind is going to tell it to you before your brain processes the words actively. You can test your subconscious being in control at any given moment. That's a fact.
That's interesting. I mean, that's definitely stuff I gotta chew on, man. But I can see your point. Because I do believe that, you know, who I am has been greatly influenced by like everything that's happened to me and things that I've been around. So
and that's all random chance. You didn't choose any of that.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm getting lost in thought, and I'm gonna have to rewatch this for me to fully like grasp the the concept. But nah, that's dope, man. Like, and that's what I need, and that's what we all need, right? Like, we need somebody to challenge our thoughts, and you doing that probably already changed my perception in some way that I just haven't realized when I talk to other folks. But yeah, any more thoughts on that though? Like, I feel like you had something more.
Oh no, I could go on. I actively have to hold myself back because we'll never move on. I could just dissect that forever. I'll give you a quick story, and I've told this story a million times. I was raised with a guy named Michael, and this guy named Michael's family are in the KKK, and they identify as neo-Nazis. I am a dark-skinned individual with dreads. They are very vocal and open about their beliefs, and I have eaten at their home, and they've treated me nicer than some of the people who are my very skin color.
Okay.
They've never behaved like racists, although they identify as racist, and they are against the mixing of race, actively, vocally, but they've never disrespected anybody. They donate to people. They think humans are humans regardless of what. Now, their argument also does kind of make sense when you think about it. If we mixed all the races, then what makes everybody unique would dissipate because we'd all be one, as opposed to knowing, if you're Black, you're probably better at sports. If you're Asian, you're probably in a structure that's better at academia.
Yeah.
That we have things. If you're Hispanic, chances are you have huge family values and you're more loving than most people when it comes to the people you're around. If we mixed everybody and we lost culture, then we would lose all that. If we needed to turn to somebody for something peculiar, we wouldn't have that person to turn to because we all have the same beliefs and the same set of skills. Differences make us unique, and wanting to blend. Now, I don't say we shouldn't blend. I think it should be 50-50. We do need differences and we do need mixture, because mixture adds to new, and we come up with greater and better things. Leave the bad genes behind, throw the good genes into the mix, and come up with a brand new race over and over and over, and have more races. But also, if we lose the races, then what's the point?
I got you. I mean, that for me culturally, that makes total sense. Because I feel so disconnected to my culture and my roots. Like, as far as like Philippines and Filipinos, I
would
was
never guessed.
You would never guessed.
Would have never guessed.
That's hilarious.
I mean, the Filipinos are fascinating because they are a mix of Spaniard and Chinese that became its own culture. Like, what the hell?
I mean, I can't answer that question, bro. Like, I have no no. It's hard for me to say. I have no connection really to the history of the Philippines, especially since like you said, the Spaniards came and kind of like wiped everything we knew before they came. So it's like, fuck, we're starting kind of new.
Do you speak Spanish?
Nah, I don't. I mean,
Mandarin?
I speak English. That's all. And
America.
I understand Tagalog, which is like the main dialect in the Philippines, but yeah, other than that,
interesting. I've never heard of that language.
Yeah, I was born there when I was like 0, and then I moved here when I was 4. So like, I guess in those early stages of development, being around those people, that kind of like stuck with me. But other than that, man, when I try to speak it, man, I talk really slow because I'm trying to pick like which words is gonna fit where.
Got you.
Yeah. So, and I just found out recently, and I don't know if this is true for everyone, but the Filipinos in the Philippines, they don't really like the Filipinos in America. They're like, don't claim us. You don't know the struggle. You're not a part of us.
Yes, that happens in most cases with most cultures, though, because there's a difference between being ethnically part of a group and being culturally part of a group. You're not culturally Filipino, you're ethnically Filipino. And those are statements that need to be made clearly, because you can claim to be Filipino all you want. You haven't walked the walk, you haven't talked the talk. And there's nuance that you're not aware of.
For sure. And I recognize that. But like that divide right there, like, I don't know if that's something that I should, connect or try to be like, hey, like Filipinos from the Philippines, like
no, there's enough Filipinos who are part of the culture. It's unique to be one that isn't. So be that instead. That's fine. Look into a different culture. Be a Filipino who speaks Italian or something.
I mean, I have family in France and family in other places that all Filipinos are out there doing their thing, like other cultures, I would say. But yeah, it's just something where in my mind you were talking about how you need that mix of like people who are mixing and people who are staying like in their own lane. And yeah, I mean, there's the traditions and the cultural richness that comes with being in your own lane. And then go ahead.
Here's what, yes, 100%, exactly that. That's exactly what my point was going to be. That in being Filipino and having a kind of loose understanding, and I'm assuming your parents are very Filipino because you were born over there.
Yeah.
So there is a very specific thing that happens in which you have basic understanding of both sides, and in return you pick and choose what makes most sense to you, and you end up with your own culture. And when you have your children, you will teach your children this unique culture, and they will teach their children this unique culture mixed with whoever they're with. So it's consistently shifting and morphing. Or you can bubble yourself in with people just like you. You go back to the Philippines and hang out with a bunch of people who are Filipino and reinforce a culture. That does nothing. We can reinforce culture forever and reinforce traditions. They're traditional. They're already there. The traditions already exist. How do we move forward? Well, we need difference. We need novelty. We need nuanced differences that we grasp from other cultures and morph into their own thing. And that's what you're essentially doing, because you got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Now what makes sense to me, and let me live that life.
I got you. And would you say right now, like for you, that a mix of mixing versus staying in your own lane, you want that 50-50? Like you think that?
Yeah, hell yeah, always.
Where do you think it is right now as far as like how the world kind of, or society kind of views that? You think the society wants more mix versus, or I guess it depends on the culture?
It depends on the culture. Usually homeland for most people is very pure. You don't really think of Asian countries as a whole, specifically not the Philippines, because that's a very unique circumstance that sort of the origin story is mix, as opposed to like how many people in Japan aren't Japanese? It's like 90% are Japanese, you know?
Yeah.
That's a culture that reinforces itself. And the mixtures we get, usually people leaving Japan as opposed to people coming into Japan. So there are cultures like that. You look at England, the population is vastly white Caucasian, English, and Irish native, as opposed to a varied amount of other people. Not to say that there aren't a lot of people from India in England, but that's sort of because of the association of the countries as opposed to an actual mass migration that's leading to the consistent mixture. But then you look at something like the United States, where there's nothing but consistent mixture. So it depends on where you are and how you're there.
I gotcha. So let me ask you if this is a good idea. I've been wanting to take like a road trip in America. I haven't explored too much, California. I'm here. Haven't been to the East Coast that much, except Jacksonville one time when I was a kid. So I want to do a road trip. A lot of friends of mine tell me, don't think that's a good idea. You're going to end up in a place where they don't like different people coming through, and you might get harassed.
Your
and stuff.
Friends are ignorant.
I got you.
Your friends are ignorant. Think of, I love hillbillies. I like rednecks are fine, but I love hillbillies. There is a honesty to hillbillies. They don't have the words, but a hillbilly will walk up to me and say, come over here, little nigger boy. Beautiful. Because it's honest, right? It's what's in his head. He's not filtering anything for me. He's not using social contracts to hide who he is. He's just being him, and he doesn't mean it in a kind of racist way. It's just he doesn't have better words to say anything. But then he'll like, hey, what do you think of this other thing over here? Let's go look at this thing over here. And he just wants to share a moment with somebody. He's not being disrespectful. The words to somebody who gets emotionally hurt by words that's a racist. But maybe he's not racist. Maybe he just doesn't have better language because he's never seen a colored person in his life, and he's only using the words he's learned. And until you correct them, that's all he knows. But if you corrected him, he'd immediately readjust. And I wasn't trying to offend you.
Yeah.
I say go where you think you don't belong, so that you can just find out that the misconceptions you have of people are equal to the misconceptions people have of you. Because we're hypocrites. We're like, oh, they're judging me. No, they just don't understand the same way you're judging them for not understanding.
I got you. Because I was thinking, and then, the more I had this conversation with them. I was like, don't you think that, like, you know, as a Filipino or Filipino American, I should move to a place where, you know, there aren't any Filipinos, just so I can show people what we're about. And and like, isn't that what, I guess, early?
No, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong because you
Okay.
want to go somewhere where people like you do not exist, so that you can show them. But who gives a shit what you affect them? You're gonna leave that place. Go somewhere where you're gonna be affected, not somewhere where you're gonna affect somebody else. It doesn't matter who you affect. You're gonna leave. You want to take something with you, not leave something behind.
I don't know, man. In my mind, I'm always thinking about stuff that I want to leave behind. Like, but in that sense, like, I feel like there's, in anywhere I go, I can take something and leave something. But I see that maybe in some places that ratio could be different. You know, I either take more and versus like leave a little bit, and you know, other way around. And I mean, for me, that the whole thought process was like thinking of early immigrants from the Philippines to America. Like, they took that leap over here because they knew there wasn't a lot of people like that over here already. So for me, inserting myself into maybe a community that, you know, either I leave more or I take more, I just want to see if, like, okay, I'm there and maybe more Filipino Americans can come there, and then now we're more integrated into America, because I feel like all the multi-ethnic places are on the coast in big cities, and that middle America is still very much, you know, just white folks.
Yeah, I would say. By the way, we pushed them in there. We pushed them in there nice and hard. Like, fuck that. This is our country, bro. But anyways, I would say assume you always leave something no matter where you go, and try to optimize how much you learn from others as opposed to caring how much you leave behind, because you'll always leave something behind. It's impossible to be somewhere and not leave a mark. You're unique. You're you. Nobody's like you in the world. It doesn't matter where you go. You could go around people who think and look just like you, and you're going to have one little bit of sauce nobody there had, and you're going to leave a mark. Even if you went to the neighborhood right next to yours, you're going to leave something. It doesn't matter. Don't focus on what you're leaving behind, because you're always going to leave something behind. You are a person. You have a presence. You're going to leave a trail of energy, of thoughts, of conversations you've had as you're moving through. That doesn't matter. Don't focus on that. It will happen inevitably. Focus on maximizing what you can take, because when you come back, that's more that you have to offer.
Got you. I got you. Just a heads up, man. I mean, I think from the very beginning, I knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary 34 Questions episode. And we only have about like 8 minutes left in our episode right now for this first one. I feel like, you know, like you said, I think we could talk for like 3 hours about all different topics. Yeah. And I think I would love to get on yours too, because like, man, I like being self-reflective, and for other folks to try to get a read on me. And I don't think I ever had like a person who told me they were a psychopath kind of be able to give me that reflection that sometimes I don't get from everybody else. So I think this was a great conversation. I hope it was fun for you.
It was amazing for me.
Yeah, even though it's short right now. But yeah, anyways, let me get a couple more questions in for you that I feel like, you know, is supposed to be a 34 Questions a podcast. But the question that ties everything together, 100, 200 years from now, your descendants are watching this video. What would you like to tell your descendants?
I'd like to tell my descendants, don't get fixated on the fact that it always looks like the world is ending, because it always looks like the world is ending to every generation that's ever existed. Look at the facts as opposed to the opinions and the feelings, and you will realize that it's always better than it was, and it'll always be better than it was, because it can never move in the opposite direction. Individually, we might be walking disasters who don't understand shit and just make our lives worse half the time. But collectively, we've made cities rise up from the ground. We've built rockets that take us to the moon. We've classified every nuance of psychological disorder, of physical disability, and tried to innovate ways to improve people's lives based on that information. We have learned whether empathetic or psychopathic, how to communicate and how to improve situations so that we see something that's objectively wrong. And we've come to the definition collectively as people that harming someone else, no matter how that looks, is wrong. And we should never do that if we can avoid it. And just always look at that to realize that it's not ending. It's just we're bored half the time. And as it gets better and we have less problems, we got to make the little things look more drastic. And then we scream louder about the little things and it looks crazier. But, you know, we're not dying of all the plagues consistently. Even this COVID thing, we're still here. So like, I'm sure there's going to be, every 100 years is another plague. So 100 years from now, you guys are going to be dealing with it. Usually around the 20s. Last one was what? 1920s,
man. I think so.
Yeah, 1920s like that. And then before it was 1821 or something like that. So it's always the same kind of period. So chances are 100 years from now, you guys are going to be going through it. But look, it happened every 100 years and we're still here. And the fact that you're still there 100 years from now tells us it's probably going to be fine. Don't stress it.
For sure. I mean, that was a message to your descendants. Or, I mean, honestly, I think it's our descendants because they're all coming from the same people, right? Like, this is where we are at this point. The future, I mean, there's going to be more people. So it came from us.
100 years from now, there is total chance we're related.
Right.
Small world.
Who fucking knows, man? Who fucking knows? Let me see. I'm trying to pick questions that I feel like should be included in this episode. I mean, let me ask you: are you open to coming back for a round two?
Yeah.
All right.
Hell yeah,
sure.
definitely.
All right. Cool. Because I know you're a fascinating person, man. I think the first person I met that was like, open about at least being a psychopath, and I never thought that it was a negative thing. It's just not something I ever got a chance to learn about or to talk to someone about it openly. So thank you for giving me that opportunity for sure. Any questions you would like to ask the next guest that comes on to 34 Questions?
Interesting. Any question that I would like to ask the next guest?
This is the way I like to connect, guests.
What is your greatest strength and convince me it's your greatest weakness?
Wow, that's a new one. I'm going to write it down real quick. What is your greatest strength? Convince me if it's that's your greatest weakness?
Yes, because nothing is perfect and we fail to see the flaws in what we appreciate and we fail to see the good in what we think is wrong.
Got you. Let the folks out there know where they can find your podcast, all that good stuff.
Let's see. You can find the Just Conversation podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, pretty much. There's Instagram. You can find that at Just Convo Pod, Twitter Just Convo Pod, Facebook Just Convo Pod. The podcast itself on every single location, including the official website greatthoughts.info. And it's pretty much it.
For sure. And I want to give you this one question from my previous guest. Shout out to Jacob. His question for you is, what has been the proudest moment of your life?
Proudest moment of my life. That's a weird question.
I know. I mean, for you, I'm sure.
Because it's like, all right, I gotta choose a random moment it brought me pride. It made me proud. I don't know, man. I've never had a real job. I've, since day one of my life, managed to avoid a 9-to-5 and pay all my bills however I saw fit with whatever skills I have, whether it be through art, whether it be odd jobs here and there, but never a 9-to-5. I refuse to do that. So I've educated myself in everything. I've informed myself in everything that I can survive off of, so I can do any and every job. I'm certified in many medical fields. I have degrees in several areas. So things that I'm proud of, intellect, I guess. Most proud of realizing, but it's a moment, right? Fuck.
No. It's good, man. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah.
What would you say you're proud of? Are you saying?
Yeah, I guess my intellect, as opposed to not intellect, my strive. I'm pretty heavy polymath.
Polymath?
Okay, a polymath is a person who has a lot of skill in a lot of areas.
Gotcha. Like jack of all trades kind of thing? Or-
Yeah, so jack of all trades isn't a polymath because they're usually a master of none.
Yeah, yeah.
So you look at Leonardo da Vinci,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a proficient artist, a proficient engineer, a great scientist, a high linguistic individual, a great writer. So he developed all the skills at the same time and survived off of all of them simultaneously, thus avoiding any kind of normality in life. And I've also made sure I fear the box, and I will never go in the box. So I'm proud that I've never stepped foot in the box.
What's up, man? That's what's up. Yeah, I might have to have you as a guest speaker for my students, man, just so they can interact if you're open. Then we'll talk about that off camera. But
yeah, definitely, I got no problem.
Yeah. But anyways, man, once again, thank you for your time. Hope to get you back on. You know, there's a few folks that like to come back onto the show just to check up and like continue the conversation. So I'll tap in with you to see if we can make that happen in the future. Want to thank all the folks out there. If you've been watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, much love to you guys too. Remember to reach out, reach forward. As always, much love, and we'll catch you guys next time on 34 Questions. Peace.
Deuces.
And then it fades out from there, man.